Hello and welcome to the video. This is a video aimed at those of you that might be interested in laser engravers. Now I've had this Sculpfun S10 for quite a few months. I've been playing around with it and I thought what would be interesting would be to kind of make a quick video for those of you that are new to this to kind of show you what it can do and how easy it is to create jobs and do engraving or cutting. Now I am interested in this because normally I use lots of 3D printers, but there's little bits of kind of basswood or balsa that we get in the hobby that when you break them are painful to reproduce, and I don't want to print these. I would rather cut them from wood, and it's very easy to absolutely cut things out of wood. That was a test, and also to engrave things in wood as well. For those of you, hopefully that's going to be picked up because we're right in the light. It's easy to engrave stuff. Now there's lots of uses for this, not just in the hobby. So for example, this is something my wife bought me a long time ago. It's been in the conservatory. It gets incredibly hot. This is a piece of wood with just like a sticker on it, really. I can scan this and actually burn that into the wood, which is what we actually thought this was when she bought it from, I think, Etsy. So it isn't just the hobby that these things are going to be handy for. So I'm going to go through all of these pieces in this first video to show you how relatively quick and easy it can be to do something to like scan a logo or a pill or a design and either engrave it on a piece of wood or cut the thing out so you can make a spare part. Just before we get into it though, safety first. Now, I'm not just wearing this to look like an action hero from the 1980s movie. These goggles do actually come with the kit. They're dark green. There is also a shield on the laser as well. Couple of safety tips. Always when you're firing the laser or you think you're going to fire the laser, put these on, protect your eyes. You only get one set. Secondly is do not leave the laser unattended. You can see how long a job's going to take when you create it in Lightburn before you press the go button. So make sure that you've got a drink and you're going to basically sit there and babysit the whole thing. This S10 laser, it's quite powerful. It can easily cut through lots of different things, engrave wood, plastics, stone, all kinds of stuff. So I'm sure you're going to see it more in the channel in the coming weeks and months. But for now, let me show you how I created this job to very quickly cut or engrave a painless 360 pill in a piece of basswood. So here we are on the computer and we'll actually create the job and we'll go and do a quick little bit of engraving. We'll engrave my painless pill on some 3mm basswood. Now before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about how you get all of this stuff. So let me just jump onto a web browser and let's have a quick look. So you can download Lightburn from this address. I'll pop it down below. And you can download it here for Windows, Mac or Linux. And when you install it, you get a 30-day trial. From the playing here, you don't seem to have any limitations in that 30 days, but it does mean you can try it before you buy. The other thing as well is there's lots of information on the lightburnsoftware.com website. Again, I'll put a link down to this below, because the other thing you really need to install is this thing here, sparks.gogo. So you really want to go and download this CH340 driver. You can download it from this address. Again, I'll put this in the links down below, because those are the two things that you need on your computer, because once you've got them both, then when you fire up Lightburn, you will have that, but also when you plug the laser in, it'll work okay. Now, if you want to use Lightburn, then what you actually need to do is buy a license, which will allow you to use it after that 30 days. There's lots of different license types available that you can use for Lightburn. The one that I have had here is I bought the GRBL one, which is the one that you're going to need. Let me show you that and how to set it up. So ideally, in devices, what you can do is click on Find My Laser and you plug in your laser via the USB and it'll scan it and it'll find it. Mine didn't work for the S10 at all, even with the driver installed. So I had to create mine manually. So what I did was plug the laser in and then said it's a GRBL laser, which is what the S10 is, and that's why you want that particular license if you want to use Lightburn passed its 30-day trial. Clicked on next. It's going to be connected via a serial cable. Call it something like Demo S10 because I'm going to delete this at the end. The axes 400 by 400. That's going to set the size of the area. Select front left as the origin. Turn off auto home because it doesn't have any auto home switches. Say next and say finish, and there we have it. You've got your laser set up. Once you've done that, then you're probably going to be in business. And what you'll find, we just remove Demo S10, there we go, is that when you go into the console, you'll have lots of things in here as it's talking to the laser, and you'll be tickety-boo. You'll be able to go into the move also when you're in here and actually move the head of the laser about, and you'll know you're in good shape. In terms of Lightburn setup, there's a couple of extra steps that I would go in here. So if you click on the cogs up here at the top, then you can turn on beginner mode, which makes the interface simpler. I've not found it particularly complex not having that turned on. The big thing in here is that you want to select the right units. Now, you can either have millimeters per second or millimeters per minute. Diode lasers are usually millimeters per minute. However, I've got all of the demo settings from Sculpfun for this particular laser, and they're all in millimeters per second. Make sure you've got this set the right way round. Otherwise, things are going to get very, very exciting. The other thing in here is if we go in device setup, this is how my laser is set up. So here's how the S10 is, 400 millimeters horizontally and vertically. The origin is at the front left hand side, which is where it's going to be expect it to be. A couple of cool things I would turn on in here. First is enable the laser fire button, and then also enable laser on when framing. I'll show you what that is in a minute. And then at the end, return to the finished position, which is basically going to pop it back to the front. Now, the last thing is in the move settings here, we have the option to fire the laser, and that turns on the laser a very small point. It's brilliant for making sure that you've got your job, your material on the cutting area in the right place. However, I didn't have that move by default. It didn't seem to be the defaults in here. So if you go into window and then make sure that you have move selected on this list, it'll appear and then you can select it. By default, this is set at 0. So when you click on framing, and again, I'll explain what this does in a minute, then it actually doesn't move. It doesn't fire the laser when it's moving around. So you need to go into here and turn that at 1%. If you do those things, then you are kind of ready to rock and roll. So let's create a new thing to do. So what I want to do is, you can do loads of different things. So for example, all these are tools, very similar to any kind of graphics package. So if you used anything else like a graphics package before, some of this is going to look familiar. So for example, if we wanted text, I could tell it that I wanted it to cut Painless 360. And if we go into cuts and layers, we can see how that's set up. Okay. And if we look in this preview window and we play it, let's just turn it down so you can see it a little bit. Play. That's what the laser is going to do. It's going to basically cut or move in that. And it's going to take about 12 seconds to do. So it's not going to take very long at all. And we know this bit is selected because you've got all these lines around it. So there's lots of different stuff you can do. So let's go back into this pick tool, and that will allow us to move it around, to rescale it if we want to. We can even set the width exactly the size we want by putting the numbers in here. We can also do things like rotate it, all that stuff. So let's delete that layer because we're not going to use that. What I'm going to do is because it's the Painless 360 channel, right? Let's do the pill. So we'll import a black and white image. So there's my pill. We'll set the size to 25 millimeters, which means we're going to have to zoom in. There we are, there's the pill. If I right click on the pill, I can say trace image. And if we zoom in, you can see that very light line. You can play with these sliders to set the thresholds, but that looks pretty good. It's kind of got it. So I'm going to say OK. So now we have two layers. We actually have the image and we have the trace. So I'm going to delete the image so we can see what we're doing. And there we have everything traced out. Now, I can do lots of different things with this. So at the moment, the mode is set for line. So if we preview that and we play it, let's turn it down so it's a bit slower. The laser is actually going to draw all of those separate pieces onto the piece of wood. However, that isn't what I want. I actually want fill. So if I preview it again, and you can see here at the moment, this lighter pink is showing where the laser is actually going to move. And it's kind of going past the end because it takes a certain amount of time for the laser to decelerate and then accelerate. So it means that it's always going at a constant speed to give you a constant engraving for the piece. So if I play that now, you can see it's actually going to give me exactly what I want. That's much more like it. Now, maybe I wanted then to go around the outside. So what I can do, if I select that piece again, select the offset tool, and then as I go in and out, there we are. Let's, about there's where I want it. Let's say OK. Now, with this separate piece selected, we can manually put it on another level, so another layer. So let's go and click it. So now that line that we've got selected here is on another layer. So let's have a look at that again. Something's not quite right, because if we play this, let's slow it down again. It's going to do the engraving first of all. It's like the logo of an old 80s movie. And then when it gets towards the end, it's going to draw around it. However, you'll have noticed it's not only drawing around the pieces that we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to say we want a line, but we're going to select this level and we're going to select ungroup. And that way it allows me to delete the pieces that is created, because I just want the outside piece. Let's have a quick check of what that looks like. It's completely filled it in. So we definitely don't want that. And that's because at the moment things have got a little bit wrong. The stuff that's in red is set to line, which is the way around, and the stuff that is set to blue is set to fill. We want that the other way around. You want the blue, the laser, to cut that as a line, and we want this to be set as fill. So if we now look at the way it's set up and we make it play, yeah, let's go for 5. That's probably fast enough. There we go. It's going to draw the line first, and then it's going to engrave the centerpiece. But maybe we could set the line for a different power level. Maybe we want the line to be done first. That's fine. We can just move that up in the order. And now when we preview it and we play it, then the engraving is going to be done first. And then when the engraving is all done, then it's going to go around the outside. And maybe that could be a cut to actually cut this out, so it could be, I don't know, used as a pin or something. The last thing we need to do is I would just group this all together, because then we're all set and we can move it around. I'm going to move it to somewhere else, probably down here, so it's just easier to cut. Last thing we need to do is set the power and speed levels. Now if I just jump onto the desktop, I have these power levels that were sent to me as examples from the boys at Sculpfun. I'll make this available as a file download. I'm going to be doing 3mm basswood, and I'm doing engraving. So I want 90mm per second at 50% power. So that's what we need to be. So for this, for the fill, it's an engraving. We want 90mm per second at 50% power. We click OK, and you see the numbers change, and the line is set to the same thing, 90mm per second at 50% power. So that's going to be a line. If I wanted it to be a cut, so if we just go back to that power thing, for example, if we wanted it to be cut, it will be 5mm per second at 100% power. So if we wanted in Lightburn for it to cut that out, and for that second piece, the line piece, we would change those values in here to be a deeper cut. But now we've got this set up, let's save it somewhere. And now we can go and fire up the laser and actually engrave this on a piece of wood. So here we are, ready to do some engraving or cutting. Now, don't forget, do make sure that whenever the laser is going to be powered on, you are wearing safety goggles. Make sure you're in a well ventilated area, because there is going to be a little bit of a smell from this. We are essentially burning wood in this particular instance. Now this is 3mm basswood, and we're going to try and engrave my pill onto it. Now let's see how that works. Now here on the computer, here's a job that we'd set up before. So that's all ready to go here in the corner, and just confirm that the power and everything is set correctly. Again, for engraving, the suggested numbers from Sculpfun are 90mm a second at 50% power. So we'll give that a shot. It's very, very easy if you turn the speed down, the power up, to cut through wood, which is something that some of you asked about. And yes, you can absolutely do that. Now, before we turn the machine on, we need to home it because it doesn't have any homing stuff. But before we do that, we just need to focus the laser. So we need to get hold of the focusing tool, which is this little metal rod that comes in the kit. We need to undo the thumb screws at the back of the laser so it can be raised up and down. We need to put the bottom of the laser enclosure on top of that spacer, and then do the two thumb screws up at the back, remove that spacer, and then put the guard back down. Keep that spacer somewhere nice and safe. So the laser is almost ready to go. So I'm going to put it into the 0 position, which is over here at the front left hand side, because that's the way we set it up. Now what we're going to do is we will power up the laser again. Safety goggles on, just to make sure that we're safe. And we know it's powered. We can hear the fan, and we have the little LED at the top of the laser ready to rock and roll. So we'll plug it into the computer, and we'll confirm that we have the right device selected, COM36 at the bottom with what it appears as. Now we're going to click on frame, and what it's going to do is it's going to draw round that relative position that we've already set out. So let's hit that, we'll set frame. And we're not in the right position, so we need to move our material to where we think it's going to be. We're going to have to hit frame again. Maybe one more time. That looks good to me. Now, the laser is going to be on. So now we're ready to go. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure our goggles are down, and we're going to click on start. And there goes the laser firing away, doing our engraving. Now again, worthwhile whenever you're doing this, do make sure that you're in a well ventilated area, and don't leave the machine unattended when it's doing this. Again, if you slow down the speed or increase the power of the laser, then it's going to do more damage to whichever material you have underneath it. With this being very lightweight basswood, it doesn't take a lot of power, and we can move relatively quickly over the surface to do the engraving. So we are already quite a way through. So you can see here it's been going for about 44 seconds, and it's 86% done. And we're just going to wait for it to finish. Bingo, there it is, it's done. So if we just turn the machine off for safety, pick up the piece of wood, there we have the logo engraved, and you can actually feel the actual texture on that. That's how quick and easy it is, and you can see how incredibly fine the lines can be. So I could turn that second line into a cut line and actually engrave the pill and then have it cut out like I did on this side. So there we have it. That's how easy it is to use. It initially looks quite complicated, but once you've got the driver installed and something like Lightburn on your computer, go through those tips that I've shown you in terms of the Lightburn setup. It's relatively straightforward to get everything set up and working beautifully. Again, last two things, safety first, always wear your goggles, never leave the laser unattended when it's running, but you will definitely be seeing lots more of this stuff on the channel, because now I can cut pieces out of wood, as well as potentially engrave bits of wood and make things that I've been interested in making for probably about 2 years. Thank you for spending your time today watching that video. You can find me in all the usual places on social media, and if you're trying to learn about a subject, then check out the playlist. All of my videos are organised into easy to follow playlists that if you're trying to learn a topic will take you from the basics right the way through to some pretty advanced stuff.